Right, testing first angle. Let's action. Can you hear that? Can you hear that sound? Okay, you can hear it. Awesome. I think today's setup really taught me and reminded me how difficult finding the perfect angle is, and like honestly finding the perfect shot in your setup. This might not be the best shot yet, but I gotta work with what I have. So let's get it. Oh, are you recording, GoPro? What's good? Right. We're talking about divine and what it is about. So I'm gonna pause you right now. Dumela, lekai. My name is Kgonamotse. I'm an international visual artist. I originally come from South Africa, Limpopo, in a small village called Kgole. It's in an undeveloped part of South Africa. But I absolutely love my village, and the world's gonna know about my village, which is awesome. So today I'm doing a sit down and talk regarding my divine series. So what my divine series is, it's a series of exhibitions and works which I'm having all over Europe, as I'm currently in Europe, in France, the south of France, Valeries. So I'm currently on a 6 months residency with Undiscovered Canvas. Undiscovered Canvas is ran by Nomaza Nunga, and my residency started in April. So I've been here since April, and it should conclude in September. So what Divine is about, Divine is a series of works which I'll be exhibiting all over Europe. I started showcasing the works, a pre-exhibition of it. It was like a 2-day exhibition in Cannes during the Cannes Film Festival, of which I'll roll a snippet video right now. Just by looking at that video, you can see like people really loved and interacted with the works. But one specific work I want to talk about today would be the God Kgonamotse artwork. So who's the divine figure behind God Kgonamotse? Specifically for me, the artwork isn't necessarily a figure of one person or one idea, but it's more of a combination of things I've gone through in life. So divine, it's kind of really hard to talk about it actually, because divine is like a series of events that have happened in my life. For those who don't know, I'm 22 years old, and being a 22-year-old Black South African artist, trying to make it out in the world is heck difficult. It's very difficult. So what divine God Kgonamotse, the artwork, I am God, is a series of events that have occurred in my life. Not in any specific order, but see, those series of events sort of triggered the emotion and the feeling that I had when I was creating that artwork. And I mean, it was different emotions, emotions of love, pain, loss, and victory. So I have to say, there's three events that stood out for me in my life into getting here, becoming an international visual artist, being able to exhibit my works in Italy, France, and all over South Africa, that have led to me sort of creating specifically that work, Divine, Kgonamotse. So one of those events were an event of encouragement. In 2016, a good brother of mine and a fellow visual artist, Blessing Ngubeni, gave me an opportunity to have a studio. And I have to say, this was my first ever studio. So Blessing, if you're watching this, I would galebo. That was my first studio in 2016. And before that, I was working at a friend's garage. Sometimes I was working on the street. I was just working everywhere, anywhere and everywhere I could paint. And in 2016, obviously that was a year after I just finished high school. So I was taking a gap year at the time, working as an intern, and obviously starting up my Kgole art and trying to push that. But I've always had the vision and the goal to go international. And I always knew that it's possible. I just need to learn what the business is. I just need to know who to know, and most importantly, put my soul out in my works. But 2016 was very filled with many emotions and many crazy ups and downs. But specifically, going back to the studio that Blessing Ngubeni gave me to use for the last 3 months of 2016, I then met up with another good brother of mine, and I have to say, so a sort of mentor, Ayanda Mambula. So Ayanda didn't know me at first. He didn't know who I was, didn't know if I was a visual artist or not. So I came to his studio, said hello to him. I didn't really know much about him, and I don't pay too much attention on what's covered on the news. So I went into his studio sometimes, and then I would check out his works, and then be like inspired. I'm like, yeah, I love that, I like that. And I'll give my input on life, and we'll chat about life and everything else. And like for the first 2 weeks of being in that studio at the Bag Factory, at the end of the first month, Ayanda obviously started visiting my studio and started seeing the body of works I was creating at the time. And I mean, at the time I had just turned 19. I had just obviously showed some of my works in Scotland, and I had obviously just had the honor of being the Sasol New Signature competition top 100. And I had also just recently just like completed my first solo exhibition at that time. So Ayanda is looking at my works, and then he comes to me and he says, I see something in you. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm damn excited to find out more about you. So Sharp, that was like a weird moment, but sort of also reviving in the instance that I knew that my ancestors were talking to me through Ayanda. And then at the end of the first month at the Bag Factory, there's a presentation. So all the new artists have to sort of present their works, who they are, what the project is. So I stand up there in front of 15 to 16 people, artists, big artist, big South African artist. So I was the last one to go. So as soon as I went up, I tell them, hey, this is who I am. I was born in a township and grew up. I was raised by my grandmother in my village in Limpopo. I got an opportunity to go to grade school on scholarship. I'm currently interning for this amazing South African artist. I've exhibited my works at the Pretoria Art Museum. I've recently just had my first solo exhibition, and I'm currently working at the Bag Factory, working on my second solo exhibition, which is gonna be like a big show for me at the time. And then I tell them all of that, and I tell them that the journey to getting there, don't look at my age, don't look at my age, don't look at the color of my skin. Look at the works. Hear my story. Listen to the journey, is what I say to them. And obviously I say some other inspirational things. Yeah. And then Ayanda pulls me over. I said a lot of things. But Ayanda pulls me over, and then he tells me, my killer, I see God in you. You're God. My killer, if you're not the best artist like you said up on stage, if you don't become the best artist in Africa and the world and represent us and represent our people, I'm going to kick your butt because I trust in you. That's what Ayanda told me. I was like, wow. And 19 at the time, and Ayanda's a big artist, and he comes up to me and he tells me that. And he's obviously seen the works. He knows the projects that I, like at 19 already, the projects that I was proposing, and the quality and the caliber of works. And then he tells me like, I love your works, and the best. I'm gonna kick your butt. So that's one emotion of like that awe of having somebody so high up, but also in the industry, sort of say that they look up to you and that you should inspire everybody else the way you've inspired them. That's one feeling that I'm trying to then I obviously portray and pour into this artwork called Kgonamotse. And then another event and emotion that also is drawn into the work is the fact that, like, growing up, I was always raised by a woman. In the instant that I was raised by my grandmother, I was raised by my mother, I was raised by my sister, who's my biggest fan. Like, she's my biggest #Kgole art fan. And you know yourself, Kenzie. She's always been there, she's always supported. And also, my grandmother on my dad's side. And this is quite an emotional story for me, for the fact that growing up in the village, it's nothing like the city. You go through life different. We used to sort of all sleep around in the hut, and we'd sleep on the floor during winter times, and then we'd sleep in like a kitchen, and then we'd all lay with our bodies there, all snuggling together, and just like all like cuddling and snuggling together just to keep warm during winter. And my grandmother from my dad's side, she always like invited me to like there were so many kids in the house, and then she would always like invite me to like snuggle up with her and we'll keep warm. And then she worked for a white family in Joburg, so the first time I really got to see Joburg and like sort of like the urban side of South Africa was through her. and I believe I was probably 4 or 5 at the time. So it would always be like, hey, Gigs, do you want to go visit your grandmother? And I'll be like, yeah, I want to visit her because she's great. I love her. And then she would pick me up with the train from the township in Tembisa, and then we were climbing on the metro rail, and people from, if you know the metro rail, South African metro rail is hectic. There's like so many people and anything and everything can happen. So now she has me, she has a bag, and then she has me, and these are fond memories. And we would climb the train at night because then she would work all day, and then after 8 p.m. she would then come to Tembisa, and then collect me, and then would have dinner. So we live in a shack in Tembisa. So we'd have dinner in our little, we call it a mkuku. So and Raja, Rakora. So in translation, we'd eat, and then as soon as we're full, my grandma would be like, sweet, let's pack your bags and let's go chill, let's go to Joburg, let's go see the lights. And Joburg was the lights. Everything else was darkness. And literally, everything else was darkness. My village only got electricity in 2012, 2013. And I mean, at 2012, 2013, I'm 16, 15 years old. And then in the township, obviously, we have electricity, but everything's so clustered. So you always feel like you're in the dark. So now we're on the train, and it's dark. She has a bag, she has me, and all you're hearing is trains going. I'm just holding on to her, smiling, and then I look her right in the eye, and she'd always look back, and that look she gives me was a look of safety, home, pureness, love. She was my heaven. She was my heaven. So now we fast forward. I think I turned 7 years old. Now we've moved to a sort of a more better place. It's in a little town, not little, but a town called Kempton Park. So I started going to school there because my dad had a job at a local power station there. So my dad is working at the local power station. I'm going to school. At the time, my whole family was obviously living at that house that we lived in Kempton Park, for the mere reason that my grandmother was sick. And then so every day, I'll come back from school, I get to see her, and then I give her kisses in her bed. And at 7 years old, I've never experienced death in my life. I never had to think about death. That concept was very, very weird and vague for me. So then every day it would be go to school, do everything I need to do at school, get the good grades and all that stuff, and then rush back home. Run, just to go see my grandmother. And then she's laying in that bed, and she still gives me the same look. She gives me the same look. And I always smile, and then I'll read a book to her, and then tell her about my day, and then give her kisses. And I did that every single day. Every single day. And I think halfway through the year, I don't know what I was upset about, but the one time I didn't go say good morning and I didn't kiss her. Good morning. Have a good day. And I'll see you later. That one morning, I didn't do that. Because I was a kid, I was late for school, I woke up late, and then I rushed, and then I looked at the door where she was in, and then I didn't go in because I had to run to school, because I walk to school every day. So that I knew that, it usually takes me like, I don't know, 30 minutes to get to school, and I have 15 minutes, so I have to run. So then I dashed out. And then in my head I was thinking, no, it's cool, don't worry. When you get back from after school, you'll get the look from her, your heaven, and you get to kiss her and you get to tell her about your day. And then I ran back home after school, and then she wasn't there. So I'm like, Mama, okay, Mama. Well, the proper term is Kgole guy. But I call both my grandmas Mama. So, okay, Kgole, okay, Mama. Oh no, gigs. She'll be back, don't worry. My parents told me. And that was the day my grandmother passed. And I didn't get to see her again. I didn't get to get that look. But deep down in my heart, I'll never forget that look. And I felt like at 7 years old I lost my heaven. There's more to it. A whole lot more to it. Just not the right time to explain it all. But I know that wherever she is, I hope she's proud and happy. I hope you're proud and happy. So now fast forward to the third emotion that I get from the masterpiece, which was in 2018. So in 2018, I had just opened up my gallery in Joburg in Maboneng. And after opening up my gallery, I obviously needed a studio. I had just gotten back from exhibiting a bunch of works in Italy and in France. And then I just turned 21 at the time. Sorry. So yeah, 2018. Yeah, I just turned 21 at the time. Great. So I have like a new studio in this new space. So this new studio space. Great. So I have Ayanda there. He's also in this new studio space. We hadn't seen each other for I think 2 years. So we catch up. I work in the space. Probably occupied the space for like 6 months before I left the country again. But the third feeling and motion that I got from that studio space, like sort of the final completion of creating the work, was the fact that I had started God Mama on the basis of like what I was feeling with previous like incidences and events that were happening in my life. At the time of starting the artwork, I had just got into a car accident with my car. So a truck driver came in from the side and hit us, and it was like not very serious, but then serious to the car. So I was like feeling very emotional, questioning life and questioning heaven
questioning the concept of God, and then the artwork came in mind. And then I had a couple of friends who came to visit me at my studio, and I was just showing them around. And at the time, I had one of my American friends, store some of his sound system in my studio. So like, the studio was packed with artworks, it was packed with music equipment, paints and everything. So it was just like crazy. So I have these two friends come over. I show them like the artworks. I show them the new concerts that I'm working on. And at the time, I was obviously working on also a small show with Tomorrow Gallery in Rosebank, Johannesburg. So then after I showed them a couple of like what I was doing, so I was like, oh, since I'm still working on another artwork, do you guys wanna work on an artwork together? They're like, yeah, sure. And then so we sat down, we brainstorm, and I'm like, okay, how about this, how about that, and then they're like, okay, let's do this, let's do that, and then obviously, the artwork that we're creating together really didn't come alive. But I still had like the concept drawing of like what we were talking about and what we wanted to create. So that was like October, November. October, November 2018. So then I took it upon myself to then complete the artwork myself. So I did the SketchUp of the work. So usually when I start working, I have one idea. There, that's what I'm gonna create. Circle. And then you go through life and you go through ups and downs, and then that circle turns into a triangle, and then that triangle maybe turns into a square, and then that square just literally turns into a line. And sometimes like an artwork you think is going to take you 2 weeks takes you 3 weeks, or takes you 2 months, or it takes you a year. Funny enough, talking about a year, so I'm currently working on an artwork now, and I started this artwork in 2016, but it's still here, and it's only going to be completed this year, and it will be up for my London show. So now heading back to Kgonamotse, I had the SketchUp, and then the accident happens, and I come back and I start pouring into more ideas into the work. So now it turns from the circle to the triangle, and then I have a second accident. And with that second accident, that was an accident with my sister's car, and I just gotten back from like a national TV interview on SABC. This old gentleman hits me from the back in my sister's car, and he completely wrecks and totals the car. That's a story for another day, because there's an artwork relating to that life and death situation that was happening. So with that situation, I was 2 seconds from death at 21. Literally 2 seconds from death. So now obviously with those emotions, I start pouring all of that into the artwork. But the main things I was pouring into was the fact that what Ayanda had said to me, me losing my grandmother, and then the third thing that I had to like predominantly, like the third leg, like if it's a triangle, the third sort of like corner was what was happening in the studio. And obviously I'll go into like more full depth in another video of what was going on into the studio. But I had just closed down the gallery because of like some flooding issues, and then it's just like a series of mishaps. So I was in the studio, and then I decided to stay longer one night, and then the studio starts flooding. So now this was the first flood, and I was very worried. So I sweep up the water, and then I realized that some artworks are damaged, or like are getting damaged, and then I'm thinking, oh, it's just a light rain, and then that light rain turns into a huge storm. A a huge storm to the point where water was like reaching my ankles in some parts of the studio. And I have like my friend's sound system here, I have my masterpieces here, and I have stored works on tables, and everything is just water everywhere. So like I clean up all of that, then the storm stops. I'm like, oh great, the storm's over. And then a few weeks after that, there's another flooding, there's another storm, a bigger storm this time. And it so happens I'm in the studio at the time. And where I moved the artworks originally from the flooding spots to the dry spots, it didn't matter. The whole studio started like flooding and caving in on me, just water everywhere. And as I was watching thousands of rands, well, kind of thousands of euros actually, of artworks just floating in that water, like all of that hard work, all of those plans, all of those planning just floating in the water, like slowly tearing away. All of that money that I had saved up, and I come from humble beginnings. I come from a whole village. I was born in a township, come from a village, and I'm very, maybe not conservative, but like, I make sure like I use everything to the best of my ability, and money doesn't come easy to me. And being an artist, you're not guaranteed sales at all. And I had thousands of euros worth of artworks, all floating, and just me soaking wet. At that point, I couldn't do anything but laugh and cry at the same time, as I was losing everything. My mastery, gone. And at the time, I was actually carrying Kgonamotse rolled up in a tube under my armpit like this. And that was the only artwork that was not complete. And I was holding that artwork. Out of all the finished artworks, I managed to save Kgonamotse in that studio, in that specific studio. Yeah, man, life will show you flames. So yeah, Kgonamotse survived that day. And then in 2019, I acquired a new studio in Joburg CBD in New Doornfontein. And then in that studio, I was obviously getting bills from all the things that I needed to pay. And I just kept having flashbacks of my studio flooding. Just kept having flashbacks of what Ayanda was telling me. Kept having flashbacks of losing my heaven. And in that new studio, empty space, all I had was empty white canvases that I had just recently bought, some new paints and brushes that I had recently bought, and then the half-finished work, Kgonamotse, that day in the studio, looking at me and waiting for what's next. So I started working on it. And the way you see it right now, that's the finished touch. And that look that you see from the lady, that was my heaven. All the images are from images, collages, photography, pictures that I found that I just collaged. So it's non-specific. It's no one but everything that I felt and that I went through. The lessons of you lose, but you learn to gain again. You learn to love. You learn to gain confidence. You learn to create. You build new heavens. You destroy. You move. You grow. You are God. Now create.